This monstrosity is what we built for our Hades River content. And we were going to do a stream, but ended up getting a note via email from the founder of Danger Den. If anyone remembers them, they made a lot of really cool acrylic case parts and things like that. And they messaged me and he said, hey, we saw your video on Hades Canyon, and actually we have a way better solution than 30 zip ties and a closed loop liquid cooler. Our solution is this. So this is a custom made, as far as I'm aware, it's either one-off or very close to one-off, but I'm gonna call it a one-off. It's a custom made, basically a torture rack that'll fit Hades Canyon, I think. And then there's your reservoir. And the more important part is that he shipped over this custom block for it. So it'll fit the VRM, the GPU, the CPU, and I think probably the HBM as well, but I'm not sure. So what we're going to do now is put a custom loop on Hades Canyon and see if we can get it up to 5 gigahertz for an overclock, at which point it'll be better than a lot of desktop CPUs. Before that, this video is brought to you by iFixit's brand new Manta driver kit. The iFixit Manta kit is a universal repair toolkit that includes 112 steel bits, redesigned from the ground up with longer necks for 4mm bits, allowing more precision when working on components. The $60 iFixit Manta kit has everything from pentalobe drivers to Y drivers and standard bits. Learn more at the link in the description below. So for the parts, this is pretty straightforward. This block, it's just a copper block, acrylic on top, and there are a couple, not really micro fins, but just copper fins in there. And either way, it's going to be better than our solution here, because even though this solution is a pretty good liquid cooler, it's a 280 silent loop cooler from Be Quiet. Even though it's pretty good on its own, we don't have enough vertical, like straight down shear mounting pressure to really press the cold plate against the components. And what that was causing in our Hades Canyon overclocking results, where we pushed it really far past what it could be handled on the stock air cooler. So we pushed way past what this thing could do, because that's what was on there originally. That versus a 280mm cooler that's bigger than the board itself. So we pushed way past what it could do stock, but still ran into thermal problems eventually, up towards the 4.7 gigahertz range on the CPU. And stock, it's between 4.2 and 4.3 gigahertz. 4.7 is pretty respectable, if I say so myself. And the GPU was something like 1320 to 1350 megahertz. There was one test we could do 1370. It's a Vega GPU, so quite good as well. But we still ran into thermal problems, and that's because of the mounting pressure. So first thing we need to do is take apart my old solution and start prepping it for the Danger Den solution, which, by the way, the Danger Den folks now have just basically I think a hobbyist modding website that you should check out. I think it's moonlightmods.com if you want to check them out. That's what they're up to these days. So, pretty simple to start out here. I'm just going to snap one of these per side, just so we don't like destroy the PCB, because they're already kind of bending. And in fact, when I got the email from the Danger Den folks, it basically said, please don't destroy your Hades Canyon system. Let me send you something better. So anyone who saw the first one, you might remember I put a ton of thermal paste on here. A lot of it ended up on the outsides. The reason I put a lot on there was because we knew this plate would be sliding around while mounting it, because we obviously don't have a proper mounting solution. So that was expected, and it looks like it still needed more thermal paste than what we had. Like, does it actually? Guess we only got one shot at this. Better make it good. All right, so what we're gonna do is a test alignment. I actually don't, oh, they did send screws. I don't know where they are. Oh, I see them, okay. So they sent screws for this. I'm not sure how this will line up, but let's figure it out, I guess. These are, oh, interesting. Are these different heights? That might explain something. I think these are different heights. So this plate that was sent in, this part over here is very slightly higher than this part over here. And looking at the Hades Canyon stuff, it looks like the GPU is actually slightly raised over the CPU. So if that's intentional, then this part needs to be on the CPU. Okay, well that might explain why the GPU is doing so much better thermally than the CPU in our follow-up testing with this thing, because it looks like the CPU is slightly lower than the GPU and HBM, which I didn't notice before. Didn't notice until this didn't seem level. And now it makes a lot of sense. So if that's genuinely the case, and to my eye it looks like it, but I'm not sure, then we should already have better results from this. So what do we need? We need thermal pads, and we need thermal paste, and some screws. And I think that'll be most of it up until we get to the liquid part. So I have plenty of thermal pads myself, but the folks who sent us this cooling setup sent a separate letter later and said, oops, forgot to include the thermal pads, sorry. So we're going to go ahead and use those since they did actually bother to send us out pads specifically for this. I'm going to have to cut them to size. So we don't have any choke coverage, but that should be okay. I think the chokes will be fine. They're just giant copper coils anyway, so that should be fine. All right, so the thermal pads are going on top of the MOSFETs, which will get reasonably hot, but they can take a lot of heat, so that's fine. And airflow for the chokes. This VRM is not particularly powerful. It's pretty good for what it is, but we have a VRM analysis of this up on the channel by BuildZoid. If you're curious about how good the VRM is, check that out. He also, because we don't know full details on this particular VRM, just because it would be hard to get a lot of details, he ends up using that video as a means to explain and teach what his VRM analysis videos look at, so you can check that out. All right, so now we just need thermal paste. I'm just going to pull, I think, some cryonaut off the wall probably. A lot of people previously were asking us, why don't you use liquid metal, which we have some up there. We have some right here too, conductinaut. So asking why don't you use liquid metal for this? Well, it's already direct eye contact, so that's doing most of the work. You're not really gaining a whole lot once you're already direct eye by going with liquid metal. And more importantly, it's conductive, so it's a huge pain in the ass because I'd have to paint over any SMDs we don't want to impact. And it's just kind of annoying to get the coverage I would need with liquid metal, and the gains are going to be basically zero. This is not conductive. I get this all over everything. So I'm actually going to apply too much here because I don't know how much that block's going to move around while I'm trying to install it. And I'd rather have too much that comes out of the edges than not have enough and have bare die bare die with no interface, which you saw when we uncapped it. I put a ton of thermal paste on there last time, and taking the thing apart just now, it still wasn't really fully covered. So this should be good for us. It is on the heavy side, but that's fine. That's the whole point. Not gonna hurt by having too much because it'll get pushed out the sides. All right, we're gonna do a quick excursion, and I'm gonna run hot water through this block just to clean it out. And it's got some dirt in there just from shipping, and we're gonna kind of scrub the bottom too. Looks pretty good. What now? Another tweet. Stop it. Stop tweeting at Gamers Nexus. You're messing up my videos. All right, so this is pretty clean now. Condensation, but that's fine. It's a water cooler. There's still some dirt in there. I'm gonna try and hit the bottom of it with rubbing alcohol, and then we'll be good to go, I think. That's reasonable. Okay, so it's not the most perfect piece of copper in the world, but it's a prototype. It's a one-off. That's fine. So we're gonna put this down and give this orientation a shot. For building this loop, I also need to make sure, do these actually thread into this thing? Someone just tweeted at me again. This video's not even live yet and they're doing it. Doing it just to spite me. Okay, so we definitely have contact now. The PCB is not bending, I don't think. Not bending too much anymore. Not like it used to be bending. So definitely better overall. And I think there's contact, and I don't think it's excessive. Well, I know there's contact. I don't think it's excessive. So now I need to start filling the loop and get it doing a test run so we can see if it looks like it's actually cooling properly. But we've got the VRMs taken care of, so that's cool. I think the next step here is probably mount it to the Danger Den chassis, or the Danger Den successor, the spiritual successor to Danger Den, Moonlight Mods chassis, and see what we can do with a pump set up at that point. So we're going to start mounting this into the new frame. So this is going to mount up here, I guess. Or is it going to fit or what? Yes, just barely. Okay, I need to get the SSD in there now that I think about it. System a little more. There we go. How to magnetize a screwdriver. Step 1, obtain magnet. Step 2, one more screw to hold in the PCB. This is going to be really cool. So I'm pretty excited about this because basically we've turned the Hades Canyon NUC into a proper desktop computer. And if the overclocking goes as I want it to, it's going to be just about as powerful as one. We're going to be limited by the power adapter. So that's the big question mark right now, is if we're limited to 230 watts out of that thing, is that going to be enough to power an overclock on this once it's all done being beasted out for this mod? EK water blocks pump. I think I have an adapter that will allow us to mount it right here. Nice. So I can route the liquid under. So here's our dilemma right now. If I run a stream, I'd just ask everybody. Seeing as you keep tweeting me, even though I asked you not to, I guess you can hear me anyway. But the thought is, you can either take, this is from the Titan V stream. It has a Sunon fan, a Vardar, and a Maglev fan. It was used to get us one of the top 4 world records for Time Spy, I think. So we've got that. That's a 360. It's a good performer. But this thing is not built for a 360 millimeter radiator. So I could do a 240 here. And the only reason I like the idea of a 240 is because it fit really cleanly down here. I put this on top of the mounting bracket, on top of the radiator, and it'd be pretty good. There's not really a downside to that, except I would have to go get it. But that's a pretty big downside. So alternatively, we put a 360 in, and I can either just kind of stand it next to the thing, in which case our radiator is bigger than the entire case holding the device, or maybe we like stick this through here, and then all the same principles would apply. It's just gigantic. So in this instance, either way, fans will push air up and through the rest of the board. So the rest of the board will have cooling. The VRMs will have general cooling. This will be a bit of a hot spot up here, but that's fine. So the question is, what do I do? I like the idea of a 240 and how compact it would be because it feels true to the Hades Canyon NUC. And you could still argue that you can take it places, even though no one ever would. But also, I like the idea of having a 360 millimeter radiator that's like 3 times the volume of the entire PCB, cooling the Hades Canyon components. To be fair, I mean, theoretically, thermals be a bit lower with this. And theoretically, for every 10 degrees drop in temperature, we should have about a 4% drop in power leakage. So that would give us some more power back against our 230 watt wall adapter. So I'm going to say we try this. Tube routing is going to be kind of gross. I think other thing, yeah, okay. So I think what we're gonna do is probably like, I want to run tubes under here, I think, if I want it to be clean. And I want to use the reservoir on the front. I still have some blue fluid, so that would be really cool to use as well. If I could make it like purple, that would be like a blue and red, that would be cool. So, okay, I need to figure out the tube routing here. So if we jump ahead in time a bit, this is what we came up with. If we time lapse it, you'll see after I kind of figured out what to do, it didn't take too long. But basically, I'll walk you through what's going on. So first of all, the skull in the front's really cool. And the way they built it, the Moonlight Mods guys, the way they did it is basically there's a tube coming in here, and the tube is, it enters into the chamber. I guess I don't know if it's an acrylic housing, but it enters in and pushes it up on an angle up against the wall at a trajectory inversely proportional, basically, like equivalent to the angle of the skull. So when the liquid goes up and hits the top of the skull, it spins in a circle. It shows up really well in our time lapse or in our footage of filling the pump. And downside was that I didn't go through and double check that everything was tight. So the cap that was in here originally was not tight all the way. Fortunately, we only leaked a little bit. I'm leak testing it, so what that means is this system is completely off right now. The only thing that's on is a power supply powering the pump, which is obviously running liquid through it. So we're going to let this run for about 24 hours full. And I'm going to put paper towels everywhere. If there's any sign of, I've marked where the liquid is roughly on the reservoir. So if there's any sign of leakage, we'll know. But if it's not leaking, we can go ahead and test the system. As far as the loop goes, though, I'm really happy with it. The way I routed it in the end, as you can see in our time-lapse footage, is basically I did the outtake straight into the block, obviously. The block for the CPU, VRM, and HBM and GPU then goes into the skull reservoir, and it goes in on the right side, which is important because that's how you get that spinning effect. Nearly did it the other way, and I'm glad I didn't. And then we're using some of these bent fittings from EK. So we've got several of these. Some of them are 90 degree, some are just kind of soft angles. So that goes into the radiator, which is a 360, I'll remind you. Comes out of the radiator, goes under the NUC, and back into the reservoir, the pumping reservoir. So it's really cool. I think the ideal use for this would be a 240 radiator in the bottom, and then just a pump, and then use their reservoir. It's not a lot of liquid, but you only have one block in there, and if you've got a 240 radiator, there's plenty to go around. So that'd probably be the ideal way to do it. It's not, I think we'll get a bit more thermal headroom for sure with this setup because I've got 3 high-powered fans on here. There's a ton of liquid. There's way more volume than the CPU could ever hope to need and saturate. So we'll be good there. It'll give us a bit more overhead, and it's just kind of cool because, I mean, the radiator's bigger than the entire thing, so that's fun too. Plus, it's the radiator that got us top 4-ish in the world record rankings for Time Spy versus Linus in the RIP LTT stream. So yeah, that's the loop. Overall, basically pump and res combo, reservoir in the front, which seems to no longer be leaking, so that's a good thing. 360 rad, which is the LC Solution Coolstream PE. Need to work on that name, EK. The Coolstream P on the bottom, and then we've got the custom block from the Danger Den folks, or former Danger Den folks, I should say. And I think for the fans, I'll just do a mixture of Sunon maglevs, which are Sunon, and maybe a Vardar or something. And I think that'll wrap up our fans pretty well. So other than that, our next objective is to see if this goes past 4.7 gigahertz this time, and if we run into a power limitation. So now the plan is run the leak test, and we're going to do a live stream for this. So we're going to basically go through all the benchmarks again, and just try and see if we can stabilize, I don't know, over 4.7 gigahertz, I hope, before hitting a power wall. And for that, we're looking at probably mid next week. So that would be maybe the 23rd or somewhere around there, 23rd, 24th, Wednesday or Thursday. We'll announce this on Twitter. So twitter.com/gamersnexus, or on Facebook as well. And we'll also try to announce it in one of the next videos. But looking at doing a live stream of it sometime next week, basically. So yeah, next possible bottleneck is going to be power, for which I don't presently have a solution, but we'll see how far we can go with this setup and then maybe try and solve it. So that's it for this one. Thank you to the folks at Moonlight Mods, aka Danger Den, for sending this over. It's a lot of fun to work with, looks really good. And the skull has darkened now. So for those of you who are more familiar with open loops, I'd be curious what your thoughts are on why that's happened. I don't think it's dirt, because the rest of the loop is not dark. But either way, it looks pretty good. So now we just need to see if the performance is good. And that's it for this one. Subscribe for more. Go to patreon.com/gamersnexus. Helps out directly. Go to store.gamersnexus.net to pick up the GN mod mat. It's on back order. If you order soon-ish, you will definitely get one for the next round. I have to say that I like the mat even more after working with it with liquid cooling, because I got a lot of liquid on here and it's held up like a beast. So check that out on the store, store.gamersnexus.net. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all next time.